So thank you for everyone for being here today. This is our fifth episode of Trio Talks. And Philip just arrived in from Paris, France. He found out that Yannick Sinner, was out, so he's thrilled about that. So
Made my day.
yeah. Um uh Go Novak Djokovic. Go Novak Djokovic. Um And we do this weekly to introduce listeners to a trio professional or a trio alumni. And any student that has ever participated in a trio program is classified as a trio alumni. If we interview a student or interview a trio professional, we always keep it focused on students benefiting from these programs and experience success in their career or winding up being at a different income bracket than where they were before getting an education and looking into opportunities and benefiting from the services that TRIO programs provide. And then we also talk to the person who's being interviewed. This week is a TRIO professional. Um, and the person talks about how they give back for what they've received so that we're teaching ways for people to be grateful. Um, so, um, the person this week may or may not have this in common with me. We may, we may or may not have had a heart to heart about cartwheels. Maybe yes, maybe no. We may have been on a trip where someone was having problems with staying upright. And that may have been something we saw, that may not have been something we saw. Um, so um, there's a lot of mystery to this. So I'm just grateful that I know this person. This person is so kind to me and so very helpful, and just really their actions match their words. So I'll hand it over to Philip.
Thank you, Cameron. As he was saying, I just landed from Paris, France, and that was nice. I'm planning on flying back as soon as we finish with this. So I'm only here for a little while today. We do have with us today Miss Elizabeth Gordon. She is the Student Support Services Program Director at Rogers State University in Claremore, Oklahoma. And she is the past president of the ODSA. ODSA is the Oklahoma Trio Association. Um, She also served as an ODSA historian and SWASAP ethics chair. She was on numerous committees for both organizations, actually. And she also serves as the media leader in her church. As far as her education, she earned her Bachelor's of Technology, Applied Technology from Rogers State, and she got her Master's of Human Relations from OU. She is also a TRIO alumni. She started in the SSS program at Rogers State in the mid 90s. She's a first gen college student. And before starting her career in college, she had a young family at home and had not really considered college beyond the dream of going. Everything changed when she was diagnosed with an eye disorder of unknown origin in 1990, which led to numerous appointments with eye specialists over the next 4 years. And during that time, she was introduced to vocational rehabilitative services, which offer the prospect of college. Through Woke Rehab, she was introduced to TRIO SSS at Rogers State University um, and started her college career. As a student, she was hired by SSS to tutor peers in various subjects and eventually landed a full time position at SSS as the Learning Resource Specialist. And so began her journey as a TRIO professional. Since then, she has worked with and in the SSS, Upper Bound, Upper Bound Med Science, Talent Search, and Educational Opportunity Center TRIO programs. She says that she is blessed to have had the opportunity to serve in TRIO for the last 30 years. Elizabeth, welcome and thank you for joining us. I hope you are buckled up for the next 45, 50 minutes of fun and entertainment, as you can tell, and you're probably used to some of it.
She was on a board with me. It was always entertaining.
I
Good memories,
sure
good
of
times.
that. So typically, we like to start with trio professionals and asking them about um, their career before they started as a trio professional, even though you started right away while you were still a student. But just going over your introduction, why don't you just start us off and talk to us a little bit about, or a little more about the time before you actually started college? So
Okay.
everything that was going on in your life prior to becoming actually an SSS student.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely a first gen student, first in my family to go to college and graduate. And so, having said that, as we all know, as career professionals, whenever a student comes from a first gen background, they know very little about college. And so, as I stated in my intro, I had the dream to go. I knew I had the skills to do it and succeed, but I had a young family, so my prospect was raising my children and being the best wife I could to my husband and take care of my family until I was diagnosed with eye disorder. It was actually in 1992. I mistakenly put 90. Um, and I had just gone to the eye doctor to get a set of glasses, and they let me know immediately that I needed to see a neurologist. And of course, my kids were 2 and 5, and I lost my mom at a very young age. So my first thought was, oh my God, I'm going to leave my kids while they're still babies, and they're not going to have their mom growing up, because the eye doctor really scared me because she told me that I either had a brain tumor or I had multiple sclerosis. And so over the next 4 years, I went through lots of testing at OU Medical and Dean McGee Eye Institute in Oklahoma City. And my stepmom at the time had actually reached out to DHS to see what kind of help would be available to me, considering the fact that, we were low income, and I didn't have insurance. And so I went through DHS, and through that process, I had got involved with rehabilitative services. Alan King was my counselor through there, and he is the one who went through some testing to find out my skill sets and introduced me to student support services here at Rogers State University. And that's where I got my start. Voc Rehab took care of my tuition, my books, and everything. I just had to show up. And so once I got involved with student support and the college life, with even with young kids at home, it kind of worked out perfect because my kids had started. By the time I entered college, they were in elementary school, so it worked out very well. I could plan my schedule around that, and that's where everything began. So I started as a tutor in student support. Eventually, I landed a full-time position as the learning resource specialist, moved up to the admin. And then at the time, we had EOC, Talent Search, SSS, and Upper Bound Math and Science. And in that time frame, we had gotten an executive director. I moved into an administrative position and worked with all the programs at that point for many, many years. um, and just over in the last 10 years became the director of student support where I began. So I feel like I'm full circle. I started in SSS. Now I'm the director of SSS at my alma mater for my bachelor degree. So I absolutely love what TRIO is and what we do. And I think that I come from a particularly special standpoint in that, because I was a recipient of those services. So I know what it means to feel like you're behind the eight ball when you start college. With You feel like everyone else has this vast wealth of knowledge about what it means to go to college and how to do things. And I had zero knowledge about that. So having that in my background makes it very easy to relate to the students I serve now. Um, I can absolutely relate to everything that they have to say when it comes to starting college and knowing nothing about it. So it gives us a really good foundation to build those relationships with the students on. So, and I'm very blessed to have had this opportunity. I know it all started with the eye disorder, but I really believe that it was all God's plan, because here I am and I love what I do, and I've been able to do what I love for actually it's 28 years as a full-time trio professional, but 30 years total working with trio. And I can't imagine anything else, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we're also all very glad that you successfully went through all those challenges and difficulties back at that time, and that everything since then has been a history, and it still is. You're still there doing that work. I actually thought of another question, but I'm gonna let Cameron go next because this is gonna build on later. So we're just gonna keep the flow in order.
So, you talked about being a student and how that being working in your program, being a student TRIO alumni from that program helps you have a perspective, unique perspective, working with students. But when you started working full time, what actually like motivated you to think this is going to be my career?
Well, because of the services I received, and because I guess mostly because I felt like it almost like home. Everyone treated with me with really great respect as a student, even though I came from a background knowing very little and being low income. You already feel kind of like you don't belong. But they welcomed me in with open arms. In fact, one of the ladies who works for me now was actually someone that I started working with all those years ago, and she retired, and I begged her to come back, and she's with me now. So, but yeah, I think that having been through all of that and being able to experience all of that has been a blessing in disguise. Now I see it for what it is, because I've been able to emulate everything that was provided to me as a student and build upon everything that I learned. Especially as times change and every technology and whatnot, you have to be adaptable. But I always carry my initial story with me, because um, it is a unique experience in that I didn't just walk into Trio and become a Trio professional. I was actually a recipient of and benefited from those services. And because the people who helped me along the way initially were very inspirational and great mentors, I felt like I always had that bar to reach in helping the students that I now serve. And so it was a great model to emulate and build my own professionalism off of. So I feel like they were a great benefit to me, as far as not just only as the student receiving benefits, but a benefit to me as a professional with my career now.
So you kind of saw it full circle, like what you said earlier.
Yeah.
So in that time frame of seeing times change and technology change and um, working with students, um, how have you seen the effect of Trio on students' lives and how it's benefited them? How have you seen that throughout your time, or by any student example you want to talk about?
Okay. Wow, there's so many. Um, Initially, whenever I was working with all the programs, one of the most rewarding things for me personally was being able to be involved with the Upper Bound Talent Search programs and seeing the students who, especially in our neck of the woods, we have a lot of rural students that and most people know, but a lot of people don't, that around rural Oklahoma, a lot of people raise their children to carry on the tradition of their farm or ranch and to keep that going. That's their goal for their kids. And we see the kids come through the door that really want something more. And so a lot of times it's not that the parents are holding them back, it's just that their vision and goal for their kids is quite different from what the kids experience on their own. And so seeing students come through those doors that really their only goal in life was to graduate high school and then carry on to tradition, family tradition of their farm. And one student in particular, I think he was upper bound. I can't really remember if it was one or the other, but he was in secondary school. And when he graduated high school, he was accepted at Duke. And you would have thought that this kid won the lottery. He never imagined in his wildest dreams that he would ever go to an Ivy League, let alone college, you know. Brilliant, brilliant young man. And so to see those stories, and there's so many, I can't even name them all. We had another student that he ended up, we've had two or three end up doctors now. I've had several Hall of Famers. But to just experience students who walk through the door that are very, very shy, very timid, they don't feel like they belong, and to be able to watch the growth from that first moment they enter our program until they walk across the stage with the degree. I'm always amazed at the growth that we see in a student from the beginning to 4 years later and getting the degree that they came here for. Um, it's astonishing. There's students who have graced my door that I thought, oh man, I just hope that we can help them enough that they can really pull up their bootstraps and get the job done. Because I think we've all experienced that with a few of our students. We're just like, wow, we may have to have some really hard conversations in the future, but 9 times out of 10 they surprise me and they get it together with our help, and they end up excelling and they amaze themselves. And that's the best part, is to see their amazement at their own successes, because they never envisioned themselves in these roles ever. And so to actually see them succeed, and the amazement that they have about their own journey, it's just great to be able to, I feel privileged to get to experience that alongside those students that we serve. So, but there's so many, oh my goodness, I could, 30 years of stories, so you can imagine.
Well,
Thousands of stories.
speaking of those specific stories, so not only while they were students, but also assuming that you're still in contact with some of them, many of them, is there any particular story that you would like to share of someone who is today very successful in whatever they do, and they went through the program while you were there?
Yeah, yeah. One in particular, he just actually graduated a year ago, 2 years ago now. When he first walked in, he was one of those where I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be work," because he was a talker. He loved to share, but he didn't like to listen. And so we had lots of conversation about two of these and one of these. There's a reason you have two, and we worried over this kid. For I call him a kid. He's an adult, but to me he's a kid, and love him to death. But he's just one of those where you're like, wow, we got to have another hard conversation today. And he was always willing to listen, and very he struggled with following what our advice, but in the end he did take it all in, and now he had a job secured. He did an internship his junior summer and got with Amazon. Ended up landing the job with Amazon before he ever graduated with his degree, and never been out on his own other than living in the dorms here on campus. No, it didn't have a driver's license, didn't have a vehicle, never lived on his own. I think I already said that, but worried about his mother, over the top warrior for his mom because she was home with his siblings, and his siblings were not very, they weren't his best cheerleaders. There was a lot of jealousy because he decided to take the high road. And so we had lots of good conversation about that. And it actually, I think, served him well to go through a lot of that, because we all know in life we experience difficult people. And his experience just with his own family, I think, has helped him tremendously for his professional growth, because he's in our Hall of Fame this year, and he came to get his book, and he was telling us about all of his adventures. So he's been able to travel. He actually had two choices. He could have went to work for BlackRock, or he could have went to work for Amazon. But he chose Amazon. Ultimately, that was the best fit for him. Now he's living on his own. He's got his own apartment. He got his driver's license. He has a car, and he's not worrying so much about his siblings, but he still worries about his mom. But to see him today compared to the day he walked through, I'm just like, wow, it's just amazing. And he's one of many. And I think that a lot of people experience that with their students. But I'm just so proud of him. I just can't get over it because we really worried over this guy, and now he's killing it. So I mean, he's the best example of what Trio does for students from the backgrounds that we serve. He's just a huge success story for us.
Awesome. And here's the question I thought of earlier, and I want to go back to that. Just not only because I'm curious, but it's always when you naturally talk about stuff from a certain period of time, and then you go back to that. Today we have Cameron mentioned technology earlier, and for us professionals talking with students, you can send a text that they may or may not, as if he says, can see right away and respond right away, and then within couple of minutes you can even talk about the enrollment. You can talk about anything. You can just check in with them. Cell phones, obviously, we have so many opportunities. But take us back to the, I guess this were the early 90s, or like we can just say 90s because cell phones were still not a thing. And
Yeah,
if you could compare that time to what I just said about today. So back then you were not able to text your student or to have a student text you. Cell phones were non-existent. So how was that compared to today as far as the communication with students, whether it's casual conversation about just checking in or something even more important? How did that look like back then?
that's a very interesting question that, as you were asking, I was thinking about several different things. And, we it seems like we have a more difficult time now getting students involved. And I'm going to blame technology for that.
What a paradox that is.
It's just crazy because back in the day, we could email students, but they were coming in frequently to see
Mhm.
what was going on. Because at the time, email was, fairly new. It had been around for a while, but, it just wasn't what it is today. And so we could contact them, but we just saw students more frequently back in the day in the 90s. They would come in and see what was going on. They would come in and hang out. Now, the students, I don't think that they're any busier per se, but I think they're distracted. I think technology is a huge distraction when it's not used for a good purpose.
Mhm.
And I've done some presentations on it, so I know quite a bit about it. But I think that we could all agree if you're sitting at a stoplight, the person next to you, you're going to leave them in the dust because they're still on their phone waiting for the light to turn green when it's already turned green. So that's just kind of a small example of what we experience here. And I think all of you probably experience the same thing. We can send text message, we can send emails, we can leave voicemails. Um, and for the most part, people respond. We may not hear from them, but they show up for the event. We may not hear directly from them, but they'll show up for a trio talk. That's what we call our workshops is trio talks. And so it is quite different. The whole dynamic has shifted as far as in person communication and checking in to make sure that you've got everything the way it should be. You're doing everything that you need to be doing, whereas now everything is at your fingertips in your room. You don't have to go anywhere. I mean, I can go shopping and I don't have to leave my house. It shows up at my doorstep. I can shop and have it there in the morning. So the students experience the same things we do with the technology. It makes our lives easier, right? And it does make things a lot easier in several different ways. But I think we are losing the human aspect that comes along with great communication. And so we do work on that. We do talk with our students about it. In fact, we're developing new student and professional presentations that are in line with that. Because it's easy to fall in that rut and you're there before you know. And then it just becomes a way of life. And then you realize at some point you're missing out on a lot. And I think that we all can agree that when students come to college, one of the first things that we attempt to do is get them involved because we know if a student's involved on campus, they're going to stay. The retention levels are much better, greater when you can get students involved. And I feel like students were way more involved back in the 90s than they are now because technology.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. So the main thing is, as trio professionals, we just have to make sure our students understand that importance because, you have to communicate. I've had students get really angry at me because they want me to come solve their problems. And the first thing I say is, have you talked to the professor? Well, no. Well, okay, why not? Well, because I've emailed them. Yeah, but have you went to their office? So it's a struggle. And I think a lot of people experience that right now with their students is getting them to understand that it's not a scary thing to go meet someone face to face and you actually get more accomplished that way. So it's a never ending process to get students to realize that because we are fighting a battle with technology on the daily. And as good as it is, it has its downfalls too. And it's only as good as it is when it works. So.
Yeah.
I hope
You
I
know,
answered your question. I feel like I'm going off the rail there.
no,
So to reel
that
me in.
you were spot on so many, as they say these days, we seem to be more connected and closer to each other than ever, yet at the same time, more disconnected and far away from one another because of that same
Yeah,
thing. Um,
yeah,
I think it would be safe to say, even Cameron can agree to this, or anyone else on this call within our office, it's almost, I think, like an unofficial maybe rule. Rule is the strong word, but when it comes down to students and uh, interaction, whether between them and the professors or them with us, number one would be communication. And without, and not only communication in general, but just proper communication. And as you said earlier, have you talked to your professor? Yes, I emailed them, but have you actually spoke to the professor? And so a lot of the times that gets, and as you said also, it requires an additional assistance, training, even workshops that can be done on that. So it's
yeah, for sure.
definitely. And you also mentioned, I like the think you said personally, even for you, sometimes it's easier to shop online or to order things. And I always
I'm,
tell the students, you know, sometimes that's definitely useful, saves you time and all that. But just think about on a bigger picture how overall we're becoming as a society just not necessarily lazier, but everything is so approachable, it's right there, others can do it for us, then why would we do it when we need to do it? And so, as you said, it's just like a cycle, and we get sucked into it, and we can't get away from it. uh,
yeah.
I have another question for you. This is more like a scenario role play. So
Okay.
think about, are you currently in your office?
Yes.
Okay, think you are where you are today as we speak, after this call is over. And then through your door walks a student, a young lady that you look at, and at first you're confused because there's something about her that is um, very specific in terms of making you tell yourself, gosh, she awfully reminds me of myself when I was younger. And turns out that it is you. It's the Elizabeth from the 90s that is a student or just about to start school. And the question is, knowing what you know today and being who you are today, what is one piece of advice or a few things that you would tell younger Elizabeth that is just starting her college life and professional life?
Mm, wow. I have a
You can
lot
take
there.
a moment to think about it. And it's not easy.
Well, the first thing I would definitely say is don't be afraid to fit in the shoes you were meant to wear
Mm,
because you're going to go through life feeling like an imposter in a lot of situations. but the truth is you belong, whether you think so or not. So take the bull by the horns and get after it. That's what I would say because it's so true. And I've experienced that periodically throughout my journey as a trio professional and as a student. Um, there's many times that I didn't want to do something. And I think we all feel that way at times. Um, but I did it. Mostly not for me. I did it because I felt obligated or I made a decision to step into the arena and not look back. And have I ever regretted those decisions? Emphatically, no. I have never regretted it. Has it been hard? 100%. At times, 100%. But it was worth every minute of it. And I tell my students that all the time. If you don't ever count yourself short on anything, because you have to embrace that imposter syndrome in every scenario you're in when you feel like you don't belong. And that could be the most mundane thing to standing up and speaking in front of 100 people. Um, the point being, when you get an opportunity and you think in the back of your mind that that's something I think I might want to do, then just do it because you've already told yourself you do, whether you think you did or not. And it may be trepidatious when you start. You're going to be feeling really uncomfortable. But in the end, you're going to be so grateful that you did it. And so, and I especially like being president in ODSA. I never imagined myself in that role. And did I feel like an imposter? Oh, yeah, 100%. But nonetheless, I just grabbed the bull by the horns and did it. And I'm so thankful that I did. I have no regrets about it. And if I could go back and tell myself that day that before I was nominated from the floor that I could do this, I would definitely do that. I'd say, don't worry, you've got this, whether you think you do or not, you do. And I have to say, people in my arena lifted me up so high that they didn't give me any option but to see myself as a success. And we try to do that here for our students. And I think most trio professionals do that for their students. So that would be my biggest piece of advice to any student, anybody for that matter, is if you have any inkling or desire to do something, be it going to school to get a degree, stepping into a role that you never dreamed you would be in, um, do it. Just do it because you're going to surprise yourself. And the growth that you gain from those experiences is immeasurable. So I can't uh, I can't imagine not knowing all the people that I know now in the United States, having been a part of Trio. People that I could reach out to at any given time, make a phone call and say, "Hey, I got this student." I could call Rick Martinez in New Mexico and say, because he's doing his master's, I think, in geology. If I had a student here interested in that subject, I could pick up the phone and call Rick today, and he would talk to that student for me. So, but if I had never stepped into those arenas, I wouldn't know Rick. I wouldn't know Cameron as well as I know Cameron. Um, so, sometimes you just have to throw caution to the wind and just do it. So don't be afraid. The worst thing that'll ever happen is I won't say you would fail because I think that there's always something to be gained even if things don't work out the way you expect or the way you want them or the way you envision them, because you learn through it all. So there's always a positive no matter what the outcome is. So
Love that. And you started by saying how the first advice would be, uh, don't be questioning the shoes that are not fitting. They belong to you and they're yours. It's like sometimes we're outside on the pouring rain and those shoes that we're wearing, they get soaking wet. But then if we're not able to change the shoes and take a shower or whatnot to feel more comfortable, we still gotta continue and we gotta wear those shoes, even though they don't fit and it might be challenging to be in them. They're ours. We gotta keep going,
Right.
right? Um, Cameron has this, or he just likes to call our talks or to break them down in segments. And as we always do, segment one, which is the introduction, segment two is just talking with the guests. Now we're gonna shift into the segment three, and he is gonna talk about the gratitude. So I'll let him take over then.
And if you never would have been on the board, you wouldn't have had those cartwheel heart to hearts with me, Elizabeth. I mean, those,
No,
and I think the Elizabeth from the '90s show is better in syndication than it was when it was first aired. It kind of reminds me of the '90s now. But in the '90s, it didn't remind me of the '90s. Uh, but I think it's so. I hope you're enjoying those residual checks. Well, I liked how you talked about connections, and um, I feel like seeing is believing with a lot of our students.
Mhm.
Whether it's because they haven't had the opportunities from the '90s to do things in person or whatnot. But I I think you talked about giving back and making connections and growth and leadership. Um, by serving in these leadership roles, who was it that came before you that you were like, oh, this person is really doing what they say, and I can count on them to help me through the process? Who was that person leading up to that?
Mm,
Because you're
that's
in a way you're in the role like a student would be like, who is this person in SSS? What is SSS? Why are they going to help me? Are they really going to? So I think by us seeing who helps us, we're able to pattern that for students. So who was
definitely.
that in our Oklahoma Trio Association?
Oh wow, there's so many. I think of Brina, my ELI days, Donovan, Kelso, Tariki, Barnes, and I've already said Brina. Oh my gosh, Lisa Johnson. There's so many that whenever I started, a lot of them hadn't even started yet. But as the time went on, like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of so many people are popping in my brain right now. Chris Simpson, she was a great mentor to me. I didn't get to see her work professionally, only at our conferences and that kind of thing, but she was my ELI mentor. And she just took me under her wing, and I just felt like I learned a lot from Chris. Um,
What is it
very,
that they specifically did that you were like, oh, these people are trustworthy. I'm believing them.
yeah, I think well, golly, all of them, just seeing their work ethic and their heart. I mean, you could see their heart in all the work that they did. And to me, that's just exceptional. I hope that people see my heart in the work I do. And I hope that I emulate that exactly the way I received it from others in Trio. Um, my first boss was Jatana Graff, and she saw the potential in me way before I did. But she treated every student with respect, regardless of what their situation was. She was across the board with all of them. Chris Simpson was the same way. Um, and for me, it was just a great example for me to follow, because it means a lot to the students whenever they can feel you're being genuine. And I can say that from having experienced that, like with Jatana, and Dorothy Mullis, who works for me now. She was working here when I started school. And she was just a great example. And I think that was kind of what inspired me to apply for a full-time position in Trio, because not only did I get to experience it, but I got to witness how the Trio professionals that led me treated students with dignity and respect, regardless of their background and where they came from. And having shown that to them, I think creates a very firm foundation to build a relationship with the students. And a lot of times these students, they come to you with having no one to really have leaned on before. You know, that you go through the motions, you get through your education and all that. But I think that if you ask anybody, if a teacher that they remember from their childhood or whatever, it's always the person that cared, right? And so almost every career professional that I've experienced watching them show me what it means to be a trio professional or treating me with that kindness and dignity. That has been what has inspired me to show that to the students that I serve because oftentimes they don't get that and it means a lot. So, um, yeah, I'm very grateful for being able to witness people being treated in that manner. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to show that same kindness to the students who need it the most.
How do you teach that in the moment with a student? Like, do you tell them like I was given so much and so much was done for me, so I'm giving back to you the way it was given to me? Is that how you explain it, or how do you do it exactly?
Not necessarily. It kind of depends on the situation. You know, I will always draw back to my personal experience. Sometimes I think that that's very important for students to recognize that you may not experience exactly what they're going through, but something similar. Um, and I think my actions speak way louder than any words that I could deliver to a student in a moment. Oftentimes, I have students that are just, and we all get this way, where they're just tired and you feel like nothing's going right. And for do I really belong in college? Those types of situations. And oftentimes they'll come in, I'll just have them shut the door and I'll say, so what's going on? And if they look like they're really, really upset, I'll just say, you know what? Let's just take a moment. You can just settle out, think about what you want to talk about. And I give them that space. Um, Oftentimes they don't ever get that from anybody. They want answers, you know, they're in situations where they're expected to have an answer immediately. So I think a lot of times it's kind of a grounding technique just to get them to settle out so that they can think about what they want to say and actually be open to hearing what I have to say to them. Um, yeah, I think that my experience and how I've been treated in the past has developed how I treat my students. Now, there are situations where I've had to like give an example, like, hey, I've been there. This is what happened to me. And sometimes maybe it wasn't exactly how it happened to me, but I'll formulate it to fit whatever they're going through. And oftentimes that's all they want is something relatable, something that they can tag on to and say, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And it isn't necessarily that I've experienced the same thing that they have. It's just a matter of filling that whole frustration at times with how things are going. Or on the opposite side of things, they may have something very good they want to come and share. And then they absolutely just want you to listen. So, yeah, it just depends on the scenario, my delivery on how I talk to. I always try to connect somehow, some way, something familiar, some connection, even the littlest of things, oftentimes end up forming the strongest connection. So I seek that out more than anything is connecting to the student because I think it's necessary that you build that. Everything can be built on that.
Mm-hmm. And I think
Uh,
that that's what research shows, that students that feel like they have a connection, they're going to be more invested in their education.
Right.
Now it's also the time for anyone that has any questions for Elizabeth. Feel free to uh, write in the box and then we will read them. Or if you want to unmute yourself, you're welcome to ask. Go on, Cameron. Sorry.
Oh, I was done. I just really enjoyed. I really enjoy Elizabeth. Just so grateful to know her. And
I'm
and
grateful.
and we started on the board. There was someone else from Elizabeth's office that we just had such a good time.
Yeah.
And the opportunities that we had by being on, we were both on the state board, and we were both all three of us were on the state board. All three of us were on the regional board, our Southwest board. And the opportunities, like I agree with you, the opportunities that I had. And funny that you said Rick Martinez. Rick Martinez is going to be on in June. He's going to be
Oh,
interviewed in
is he?
June. Yeah.
I'll be
And
watching.
and funny thing about connections too is our person next week, we're going to have to do it on Wednesday next week instead of Thursday. But who is our trio achiever of the year, who was at your conference. So he's on this
Nice.
call. So
Oh,
uh,
he's good. I enjoyed him a lot at conference. What he had to say was just, it was fabulous. I loved
yeah,
it.
does a good
Yeah,
job.
yeah, yeah. It's great. Trio's kind of been my life for the last 30 years. But I think that if you have a servant's heart, then you have a trio heart.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Um,
It's this is Elizabeth, you're our fifth guest, but so far, including you, so this five so far, we had a combination of or the mixture of professionals, alumni, or both, and even current students. And one thing in common, other than the obvious, being in trio and whatnot, uh, I think it's that everyone has been equally entertaining as far as just the stories they had to share, including you. And it's as Cameron said, it's even if we didn't have to ask questions, if you can just talk about it, we can just sit back and listen. And you know, and
Yeah.
Angel says that she loves what you said about the people that impacted you were the ones that showed they cared, respected, and treated you with dignity. It made her reflect on the people that she has been lucky to encounter throughout her academic career. She had a few educators and counselors come into mind when she heard you say that. She's grateful to have so many people come to mind now that she's in college, and coincidentally, almost all of them are involved with TRIO. And she
Awesome.
thanks
I love that. I
I,
love
I'm
that.
gonna I'm gonna be a little bit snarky, Elizabeth.
Okay.
You're such a good professional. We don't have to have you have a tattoo on your wrist that says "Bless your heart." Okay, we don't have to have that. We don't. I don't have to say, "Okay, look at the tattoo, Elizabeth." And oh, okay, okay. We don't have to do that because you're so superb.
You're so funny.
I think I'm funny.
Well, it's been a rewarding career so far, that's for sure. Um, yeah, I just can't imagine doing anything else.
Alyssa
JR.
was go ahead, Philip.
JR doesn't have a question, just an observation. You can really tell you have a passion for what you do.
Oh, good. I hope so.
So
And
Alyssa said that she loves that we are talking about workshops with students. And then when I was saying that you're a superb professional, she said she seconds that.
I don't know if
Well,
that was referring to being super professional or the tattoo, and or both.
either
No,
or.
that the fact she doesn't have to have the tattoo.
Yeah.
That was the joke. She doesn't have to. Oh,
Okay,
Elizabeth
super
says
professional.
superb professional. You don't have to have the tattoo that says bless your heart. That you're so good, you do not have to have that. That is a specific joke. And Elizabeth knows what I'm talking about.
Oh man. Well, I would just like to take a second to encourage all my trio professional peeps that are on here. If you get the opportunity to serve in any capacity, take it. Just do it. You won't regret it. It's not easy all the time for sure, but it's worthwhile. And the networking that you gain out of it is immeasurable. So
Hmm.
just call me. I'll talk to you. We can talk it through. If you think you have an idea you want to serve in any capacity, holler at me. We can have a conversation.
By the way, not only professional on this that are on right now, because we always remind that this goes out on YouTube. And so anyone can listen to this episode or any other previous episodes later on, both alumni and students, and then professionals as well. So if
That's
anyone
awesome.
misses, they can still catch up.
That's I love that. This is great, you guys. I really appreciate that you're doing this. It gives us an opportunity, if a way to talk about Trio and all the good things that we do, especially considering now with everything going on with the government. We need our voice heard
And
for
and we're focusing on student strengths. Student strengths benefits from these programs, and
absolutely.
I think I'm not going to speak for Dr. Mike Davis, but I think he will for sure say, his career is not what it is without Trio. And that's focusing on career assets and career possibilities that would have been impossible without Trio. And, with a career comes, you're paid. You're paid to do a job, and without education, a lot of those paid opportunities don't happen. And so you by the fact of having a health challenge are directed into a field of work that you enjoy, but you're also being paid to do something you enjoy. Not many people get to do that.
That's right. Well, and another aspect of my position is because we do serve students with disabilities, I can relate to students on that end of things too. For me personally, I didn't want anyone to know that I had an eye disorder or disability in that way. In fact, so much so that I didn't even ask for help with like extra time on tests or anything like that until I had to. And then it was a tearful meeting with the disability services on campus. He's like, "Why haven't you been here sooner?" I said, "Because I didn't want to." Well, now I can use that story as an example to my students who have the difficulty of being in college with a disability. I can relate to them on that level as well and encourage them the way that I was encouraged through. So I think that that's a unique aspect that I bring to the table as well.
And Mike corrected Cameron. He said not just his career, but many aspects of his life are better because of Trio. That includes running. Probably as a former, alumni student, he wasn't able to run as much, and now as a former Trio student, and what he's doing now, he's able to be crashing these marathons and running all the time. That's
That's all.
one silly example of that.
Yeah.
I think what we do is so important because we work with we have a holistic approach. We work with the entire part of the student. We don't just more than once, more than once. I have students come through my office. Well, nobody told me that. Nobody's ever told me that. And that's because we cover a little bit. We're like a jack of all trades. We cover a little bit of everything. And it's like, well, billing affects financial aid. Financial aid affects how many hours you can have. That affects, scholarships are all related to that. So we work with the whole entire student, and we don't just say, okay, this is what you need to do. We ask and inquire them, and like we make the connection with the student, like what you were saying.
Yeah, definitely. You have to. If you truly want to help the student, you need to know and what's going on. Otherwise, well, personally, I'll speak for me. Um, I'm not doing my job well. If I see a student, I don't care where I'm at on campus. If it's one of my students, I'm just like, "Yo, what's going on? I haven't seen you in a while." And I strike up that conversation. And I still have students who are very timid. You can tell that they're kind of uncomfortable. But by the time we get done speaking, then they're usually pretty comfortable. And then they'll come see me a little more often. But you're right, we do. We have to make sure that because we've experienced that. We know what it's like being a college student. And oftentimes you get in your own head and you're struggling and you're not telling anybody. So sometimes you just have to pay attention to body language and that kind of thing, and kind of read the temperature of the student when they walk in your office and find out what's going on. So I think that everybody really appreciates when someone's just checking in, just checking on their day, seeing how they're doing. But that's how you build those strong foundations with your students and keeps them coming back. And then they know they can trust you to come to you with anything. So it's tough sometimes. I know that we all have the students with the stories that are just heartbreaking at times. Um, but luckily, at the end of the day, there's usually a positive that follows at some point, and that's what we focus on. So we
Back
love
to
our.
the comment that students come to our office and say that nobody told them that we can all hang the quotes and put it in our offices. It says, "Oh wow, I didn't know
Yeah.
that."
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's well, and it's just amazing to me. And I can remember being in that position where you've been explained something two or three times, and sometimes it feels like it's different, like they're speaking a different language in three different scenarios. And so a lot of times I think that for us, it's just trying to wade through all the nonsense to get to the meat of the problem. Oftentimes, the students that we serve, they'll come in, they're struggling at something, and 9 times out of 10, they've created a way bigger problem up here than what's actually taking place physically in reality. And so, one of the things that we like to talk to our students about is um, don't buy into the story your mind's creating, because 9 times out of 10, it's never the truth. We assume a lot, but you know what assuming does. And I'm not going to say it, but I think most people know. But I do hope that, we always hope that our students, when they're struggling, they come to us first. And we try to make sure that they know that's available to them. So,
Well, I would like to personally thank you very much, Elizabeth, for your time this hour. I think the students that we've had and staff and, our speaker next week have greatly appreciated everything that you've said. And I loved what you had to say about connections, having the match between your words and your actions, and listening to the student and helping them so that they know that they can trust you. And I think all of that shows how relevant all of this is and how Trio works. So I really do thank you. You're a very good person to know. Very good person to know.
well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. I could talk for a long, long time, but I really just keep myself reeled in right now because I have so much I can say. Again, call me. Anybody wants to jump into the arena, holler at me. We can have a convo about it. I'll be your cheerleader. I love cheerleading people on, do better things, do good things in their lives.
One of our online students, he just said, "Thank you for sharing your story." He actually lives in Pryor, but he's one of our online students.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so geographically, you're closer to him than we are. But
Yes, Elizabeth, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys so
Once
much.
we complete the circle and we run out of guests, we will consider everyone who was a guest to come back for the second time. So you're definitely on the list.
Okay, awesome. Love it.
well, have a great day, Elizabeth, and thank you everyone for viewing and joining today.
You
Don't
too. Thank you so much.
don't run off, Cam.